You mentioned earlier about they are now describing Christian nationalism as white supremacy, or I think maybe just in general they're describing Christianity as white supremacy. Is that accurate, that they are to some degree describing it that way?
They are, and it's not new. Well, just brief history lesson. We go back a year, and we had the revelation of this intelligence report from FBI Richmond field office about radical traditional Catholics, and all of the literature and research and reporting that was used, that was very biased, that was used to generate that report, came from Salon and the Atlantic and the Southern Poverty Law Center. But all of those resources said that this was white Christian nationalism linked. And because it was brought to light by a friend of mine, it kind of went back under the rug. Well, now they're starting to reemerge it. They're not calling it white Christian nationalism. They're calling it Christian nationalism. And the term doesn't matter. I know people get spun up about it, and a lot of people think, oh, I'm going to lean into that, and I'm really going to own them on this. The term doesn't matter. They can call you a scuba diver. They can call you a ventriloquist dummy. It does not matter. What they're going to do is take a study like, say, like they did for the radical traditional Catholic memo, and it'll be from the Public Religion Research Institute. Right? That is Soros funded. They have a connection with the Brookings Institution and the Atlantic and United Unitarians and all these far left organizations. And they'll come out and they'll commission a study, and the study will say that the 30% of Americans are Christian nationalists. Well, what's a Christian nationalism? Well, even though across racial lines there's a lot of agreement and there's no animosity between the racial groups, it's all refracted through white supremacy. And then there's also a tie to, we're seeing a correlation between people who are Christian nationalists and white supremacists and people who vote Republican. Well, now the FBI has the quote unquote nonpartisan literature and study, which will be reported in the news and talked about on TV. And they'll take all of that, collect it, and intelligence analysts will generate a bulletin or maybe a full report and suggest that, well, we better send some informants into these parishes to go investigate these people and see if maybe they're becoming anti-government extremists. Because not because of their First Amendment protected activity like worshiping on Sunday, but because they hold other beliefs that make them primed to become anti-government radicals. And if you go to the radical traditional Catholic memo, what made those, according to this intelligence analyst, what made people primed to become anti-government extremists were beliefs like being pro-life, pro-traditional marriage, pro-border sovereignty, and pro-Second Amendment, none of which are illegal. But they said just merely holding those beliefs kind of edges you towards becoming radicalized. And then what the FBI does is they will find a person. And that's when they will do things like introduce an informant or an undercover. And the person that they find, most of the time, as I talked about before with the homegrown violent extremist, that's a vulnerable person. There's actually a growing trend now in the FBI because we live and exist in this online digital world of FBI undercovers or informants going online, seeking out emotionally disturbed people, particularly autistic people, particularly minors, and then provoking them because of their proclivities become obsessive. And the undercover will say, well, don't you like ISIS? ISIS is really good. Don't you think you like ISIS? You know, you should probably do. You should probably send them some money. And they will provoke them and push them, sometimes for years, until they actually go from being 16 years old to 18. And then when they're 18 years old in one day, the FBI bangs down their door and said, you provided material support to ISIS, you're under arrest. The same tactic has been used for decades, and it will be used against people who just claim to be Christian nationalists because they think they need to lean into that term.